Baik, Bapak Ibu. Selamat siang, Bapak Ibu yang kami hormati. Terima kasih telah bergabung melalui Zoom dalam acara paparan laporan berjudul Analysis of Agri-PV Potential in Indonesia. Yang kami hormati, Kepala Pusat Pengembangan Sumber Daya Manusia, Ketenaga Listrikan, Energi Baru Terbarukan, dan Konservasi Energi PPSDM KIB TKE, Bapak Insinyur Albertus Susetio Edi Prabowo, selaku Head of RESD Project Implementing Unit. Tim Leader Renewable Energy Skills Development, RESD, Ibu Dian Elvira Rosa. Yang kami hormati International Renewable Energy Expert, Bapak Martin Stotle. Yang kami hormati Bapak Ibu dari Kementerian ESDM, dan serta Bapak Ibu anggota Asosiasi Energi Surya Indonesia, dan juga perwakilan dari berbagai perusahaan maupun lembaga yang telah memberikan dukungan terhadap penelitian Agri-PV ini. Acara pada hari ini membahas hasil penelitian terkait potensi Agri-Voltaics di Indonesia yang telah dilakukan oleh Saudara Basil Guentert selama 6 bulan terakhir. Untuk memulai rangkaian acara, mari kita dengarkan welcome remarks yang akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Martin Stotle. Kepada Bapak Martin, kami persilakan.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning to myself here in Europe. First of all, welcome to this important event from our side. Important for two good reasons. The first is that we as a project in vocational education do take it very serious and want to give young Swiss people as well a chance to gain some experience in a completely different environment, as well as abroad outside Switzerland. And in that respect, we have started a while ago to have some Swiss interns in our project, which are then usually taking over some particular subjects and particular study or something doing for us, while at the same time learning how such a development project is functioning. Because in Switzerland, when you look at the whole environment of development cooperation, usually there is not enough young Swiss people which are willing to go and work in such a project. So there is plenty of non-Swiss people working in Swiss projects, and therefore we would like to contribute as well a bit with that activity, that maybe in future there will be a few more people from Switzerland which are willing to go into development cooperation. But that's only the one point. The reason why we were agreeing with Basil Guentert to work for us in our project for quite a while, actually, for 6 months. And for him, it's a very special case because his 6 months in Indonesia are actually part of his studies. So it's an integral part of his studies at the University of Applied Science Zurich, that he spent 6 months abroad in a project and is working for us. So the second reason I was mentioning in the beginning that we have to, the second reason is the belief we have that actually the potential for agrivoltaic in Indonesia is huge. It's probably one of the best potentials of countries around the world. Indonesia has a huge agricultural sector. Indonesia has a very high sun radiation, which makes solar panels very efficient. Indonesia has sunshine almost the whole year long, and these Indonesia does have quite a lot of crops which actually need shading. When you look at the most typical is probably a coffee or a cocoa plantation. They always have some trees, bigger trees in between the coffee or the cocoa trees, because those cocoa trees need shading. If they are just under the bare sun, they will not be producing so efficiently. And these trees could actually be replaced by solar panels. And that is the topic Basil was working on over the last almost 6 months, and having a look with all stakeholders, or a selection of the stakeholders. You never can reach all, but focusing on the one hand on the agricultural sector, on the other hand on the solar PV sector, on associations and so on, bringing the people together as well in an event he organized about, what is it, 1.5 months ago, to bring those interested parties together and talk directly to each other. And we sincerely hope that his findings he will be presenting now will be one more step in pushing a bit this agenda of introducing agrivoltaic in a bigger sense in Indonesia, because the future would, as I have said, be fantastic. So last but not least, I would like to thank first of all Basil, who invested so much energy and efforts into putting that all together, which is culminating today, and his university giving him the chance that he was allowed to go to Indonesia for 6 months. Thanking to all these parties he has been interviewing and visiting and talking with for their patience and their time they invested into explaining Basil what the situation currently is and where they see the potential. Thank you all very much, and I'm looking forward to a very interesting session.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Martin atas kata sambutannya. Berikutnya kami mengundang Kepala PPSDM KIBTKE sekaligus Head of RSD Project Implementing Unit, Bapak Insinyur Albertus Susetio Edi Prabowo, untuk memberikan opening remarks dan membuka acara secara resmi. Kami persilakan kepada Bapak Edi.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Devi. Yang saya hormati Bapak Ibu perwakilan pemerintah, mitra pembangunan, akademisi, dan rekan-rekan industri. Yang saya hormati Pak Basil Guentert, peneliti dari Zurich University of Applied Sciences. Yang saya hormati Bapak Ibu hadirin yang berbahagia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sore dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Pertama-tama, marilah kita panjatkan puji dan syukur kehadirat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, karena berkat rahmat-Nya kita dapat hadir dalam forum penting ini, yaitu presentasi laporan Analysis of Agri-PV Potential in Indonesia yang diselenggarakan oleh RSD Project. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, hari ini kita berkumpul dalam momentum yang istimewa. Indonesia sedang berada di era baru transisi energi, sebuah perjalanan besar menuju pemenuhan target iklim nasional dan masa depan yang lebih hijau. Namun kita tahu transisi energi tidak hanya soal teknologi atau pembangunan infrastruktur, melainkan juga tentang sumber daya manusia, bagaimana kita mempersiapkan tenaga kerja yang kompeten, adaptif, dan siap berkontribusi. Transformasi ini menuntut kita untuk membangun kurikulum baru, menyelenggarakan pelatihan teknis, dan meningkatkan kapasitas di lapangan agar transisi energi berjalan inklusif, berkelanjutan, dan berhasil guna. Kami juga menyadari bahwa tantangan yang kita hadapi saat ini sangat kompleks, mulai dari perubahan iklim, ketahanan pangan, hingga ketahanan energi. Tidak ada satu pihak pun yang bisa menyelesaikannya sendiri. Diperlukan kolaborasi lintas disiplin dan lintas pemangku kepentingan antara pemerintah, sektor swasta, akademisi, hingga masyarakat. Hanya dengan kolaborasi kita dapat mempercepat transfer pengetahuan, menggerakkan sumber daya, dan memastikan keberlanjutan program dalam jangka panjang. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian yang saya banggakan, salah satu inovasi yang kini banyak diperbincangkan adalah Agri-PV, integrasi panel surya dengan aktivitas pertanian pada lahan yang sama. Agri-PV merupakan solusi terpadu yang menjawab 3 kebutuhan sekaligus, yaitu transisi energi, ketahanan pangan, dan ketahanan iklim. Dengan pendekatan ini, lahan pertanian tidak hanya menghasilkan pangan, namun juga energi bersih, sekaligus membuka peluang ekonomi baru, terutama di wilayah pedesaan. Kita tahu di Indonesia Agri-PV masih dalam tahap penelitian. Namun temuan awal dari studi ini menunjukkan potensi yang sangat besar. Bahkan dengan penerapan yang relatif kecil, 10 hingga 30% dari lahan pertanian yang sesuai, kita sudah bisa memenuhi porsi signifikan dari kebutuhan listrik nasional tanpa mengorbankan produktivitas pertanian. Negara-negara seperti Jepang sudah lebih dulu membuktikan hal ini, dan saya percaya Indonesia pun bisa melangkah ke arah yang sama. Oleh karena itu, presentasi hari ini sangatlah penting. Ini adalah bagian dari rangkaian kegiatan riset RESD yang sebelumnya juga sukses menggelar Agri-PV Conference Indonesia 2025 bersama Asosiasi Energi Surya Indonesia atau AESI. Laporan yang dipaparkan hari ini akan memberikan kita wawasan baru, data konkret, sekaligus inspirasi untuk membawa Agri-PV dari sekedar penelitian menuju aksi nyata. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian yang berbahagia, akhir kata saya ingin menyampaikan apresiasi setinggi-tingginya kepada tim RSD, para peneliti termasuk Mr. Basil Guentert dari Zurich University of Applied Sciences, serta seluruh mitra yang telah mendukung terlaksananya studi ini. Semoga kegiatan ini menjadi momentum penting bagi kita semua dalam memperkuat sinergi, membangun masa depan energi Indonesia yang lebih bersih, tangguh, dan berkelanjutan. Demikian yang dapat saya sampaikan. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Bapak Edi atas kata sambutannya yang luar biasa. Selanjutnya, mari kita dengarkan paparan laporan yang akan disampaikan oleh Saudara Basil Guentert. Kepada Saudara Basil, kami persilakan.
Yeah, selamat siang semuanya, and good afternoon, everyone. Also, welcome from my side. Thank you that you're here. So, as already mentioned, the study which will be presented focus on the agrivoltaic potential in Indonesia. As mentioned before, it is the result of a 6-month internship for which I was given the opportunity. Yeah, so thank you, Pa Edi, again, and thank you, Pa Martin, for the opening. And with that, we're going to start with the rundown from the presentation. So after going through the context and the research objectives and the methodology, I would like to present the results. starting with a more general and global introduction, followed by the Indonesian specific results. Finally, I will talk about the recommendations. They are split in the general recommendations and the RESD tailored recommendations. If there are questions during the presentations, please write them down and I'm happy to discuss them in the end. The presentation will last around 25 minutes and following we will have time for question and discussion. The agrivoltaic potential study is part and initiated from RESD, the Renewable Energy Skills Development Project. The project aims to ensure the availability of skilled labor force in the renewable energy sector. It consists of 3 components: formal education, non-formal education, and the third component, a digital learning platform. And in this context, the project wanted to know whether the agri-photovoltaic is a potential topic for implementation in the remaining project time, as already mentioned from Martin in the opening. The agriculture sector is increasingly exposed to climate-related stressors, including higher temperatures and extreme weather events, which threaten crop yields and farmer livelihoods. Food security gains nationwide importance. The energy sector is also undergoing change. With the growing energy and electricity demand, Indonesia is facing different challenges. As of 2024, renewable energy accounted for 14.65% of the primary energy supply. Midterm targets such as PLN's electricity plan, RUPTL, are emphasizing the deployment of renewable energies. The current long-term target is to reach net zero by 2060. The reported potential of renewable energies ranges from 442 to 3,600 gigawatt, but all excluding agriculture area, and thus also Agri-PV. Therefore, Agri-PV could offer a strategic opportunity to address multiple national priorities and challenges. According to that, 3 main research objectives were formulated. First, the target was to identify the agricultural potential in hectares and crop compatibility for agri-photovoltaic in Indonesia. The second objective was to estimate the technical electricity generation potential of agri-photovoltaic systems in Indonesia. And as a third objective to complete was the integration of socio-economic considerations, including stakeholder perspectives and cost aspects. Based on these objectives, the recommendations were built. The study adopts a mixed methods approach. The qualitative approach with 19 interviews was supplemented by a comprehensive desktop research and data analysis. The analysis reflects conditions as of August this year. Agrivoltaic systems allows the simultaneous use of land for agricultural production and photovoltaic electricity generation. Solar panels function as shading structures that protect crops, and at the same time, excess sunlight is used for electricity production. Generally, agri-photovoltaic can be classified into 3 main types: the fixed stilted structure, the tracking stilted structure, single axis or dual axis, and a ground-mounted vertical system with or without tracking. without tracking on the left and the tracking system on the right. While the tracking describes the movable modules, which are dynamic and following the course of the sun, or depending how they are programmed. In contrast to conventional ground-mounted photovoltaic, which is land-intensive and can degrade soil and vegetation, well-designed agri-photovoltaic systems offer mutual benefits such as climate resilience, economic resilience, rural development, and also land use efficiency. The dual use of land for agrivoltaic and a crop growing increases the land use efficiency. In case of a test site in Germany with potato, a land equivalent ratio of 186% was reported. The picture shows on the left the conventional separated system and on the right the agri-photovoltaic system. Globally, the USA are recording 604 registered sites this year with a total capacity of 10 gigawatt peak. Japan seems to be global leader with more than 1,990 agri-photovoltaic farms, contributing to around 1% of their national PV generation. The global total installed capacity remains unclear, but a general sector growth is recognized. When talking about relevant factors for planning and designing an agri-photovoltaic system, the crop is the decisive factor. The design should be tailored to the agricultural needs. Further, the specific electricity yield depends on the irradiance and the system design. The agri-photovoltaic design must be adapted to the local context, considering geographical factors such as elevation, rainfall distribution, or soil type. And further, also existing agricultural practices and communities. As already mentioned, there are different agri-photovoltaic systems common. In between the different system types, the nominal power per area and the specific electricity yield varies widely. For example, European studies reported at a range from 300 to 740 kilowatt peak per hectare. This picture shows a fixed stilted roof structure with a high density panel area and a low row spacing. Tracking in agrivoltaic is used to optimize shading patterns and microclimatic conditions, which can contribute to improved crop performance and resilience. Here we can see a single-axis tracking system and a dual-axis tracking system. Regarding the current situation in Indonesia, this study discovered only 5 explicit agri-photovoltaic projects. There is only a small amount of agri-photovoltaic or related topics Indonesian-specific research available. The term agri-photovoltaic is often used inconsistently in Indonesia. For example, photovoltaic installations powering irrigation systems or on-farm processing equipment are sometimes labeled as agri-photovoltaic, although they are not physically co-located over agricultural land. These applications, such as solar-powered water pumps, are highly relevant for farm operations. However, they do not represent the characteristics of agrivoltaic systems and are less complex. Approximately 30% of Indonesia's total land area is used for agriculture. 99% of the agriculture holdings are smallholders. However, most of the agriculture area is managed by large corporations. For agri-photovoltaic, a careful crop assessment followed by the area calculation is essential. To start with the agricultural area, the proportion of agricultural land covered by photovoltaic panels is considered between 10 to 30% of the suitable area. This is called the coverage factor, and it was applied according to the literature. Also, it's important to consider land use constraints and environmental sensitive areas to ensure the sustainability of projects. This could be done with a geospatial assessment, but that was, however, not part of this study. On the crop side, research on crop and agri-photovoltaic compatibility in Indonesia remains limited. The crop suitability must consider multiple factors, starting with the physiological adaptability. Major Indonesian crops like palm oil, rubber, cacao trees, they grow to heights of 6 meters or more, are considered unsuitable. Crops under 5 meters in height are considered suitable. Talking more about the physiological adaptability of plants. Certain plants are more likely to grow successfully and in some cases achieve higher yields under agrivoltaic conditions. The light saturation point is a crop-specific threshold for optimal light use. It is a key indicator for assessing crop suitability. Further factors for the choice of the crop are, for example, economic value and market access. The crop responses to the agrivoltaic systems vary widely by region. The agri-photovoltaic systems modify the microclimate by reducing, for example, the temperature extremes, and this represents a chance for future agriculture resilience. In Indonesia, sun-intensive and shade-intolerant crops like maize and rice exhibit significantly decrease in the crop yield under shading and are generally unsuitable for agri-photovoltaic. In Indonesia, for example, tomato, eggplant, coffee, chili, beans, or selected herbs may be feasible. This study considered, based on research, 29 Indonesian crops. And the study came to the conclusion that currently suitable crops are growing on 3.75% of the total agricultural area. And with that, we are coming to the technical potential. The technical potential describes the maximum achievable capacity in terawatt, the generation in terawatt hours, and the suitable land area in hectares. When restricted to the crops identified as suitable for agri-photovoltaic, the total land area considered is 2,339 hectares. Those are the 3.75% as mentioned before. With a mentioned agri-photovoltaic coverage factor of 10 to 30% and a nominal power per area from 300 to 600 kilowatt peak per hectare assumed, the theoretical national agrivoltaics energy output yields from 128 to 769 terawatt hours and a potential capacity of 85 to 509 gigawatt peak. According to that, theoretically, 20 to 120% from the projected electricity demand by 2050 in Indonesia could be covered alone from agri-photovoltaic. This bar chart is illustrating the estimated energy generation potential in terawatt hours for the 29, respectively the 16 selected crops under 4 scenarios. Under 4 scenarios with 2 different coverage factors, the 10 and the 13%, as mentioned before, and the 2 different kilowatt peak per hectare, 300 and 600. They are representing the different system designs. Among the suitable crops, coffee stands out with the highest energy potential, reaching approximately 57 terawatts under the lower density and conservative coverage of 10% scenario. Robusta accounts for roughly 72% of this total. Eggplant, despite its relatively limited cultivation area, also emerges as a promising candidate for agri-photovoltaic integration. Its analyzed potential is 13.46 terawatt hours. Many suitable areas for agri-photovoltaic are located in remote or decentralized regions. Farmers typically require limited electricity for their own use, so the excess power must be sold, either to PLN where permitted or through community energy models. The plot illustrates the geographical distribution of the potential area for suitable crops for agri-photovoltaic, and also depicts the predominant crops in the 9 regions with the largest proportion of suitable area. It was anticipated that Java holds the highest share of the agriculture area with suitable crops, around 35%. Java is agriculturally versatile, with regional different predominant crops, onion varieties, tea, and cayenne pepper. However, it's important to acknowledge the potential of other regions as well. Notably, 1/3 of the total suitable area is distributed among 29 regions, each accounting for less than 4.5% individually. Among the major crop, coffee is the most dominant, with being the major crop in 6 regions. Robusta coffee accounts to 22% and Arabica coffee to around 18%. The long-term success of agri-photovoltaic projects depends not only on the technological feasibility, but also on the social and economic aspects. When discussing the social aspects of agri-photovoltaic in Indonesia, adaptation to the local context is crucial. Local actors mentioned that farmers recognize the potential benefits, such as additional income, safeguard of the income, and especially talking about improved climate resilience in agriculture. But at the same time, several challenges remain. Involved parties may remain concerned about unfamiliarity with technology and unclear or unequal distribution of benefits. Also, land tenure or ownership issues can complicate project implementation. Another concern is the long-term responsibility for operation and maintenance. To address these challenges, community involvement is essential. Awareness raising and transparent information sharing helps building trust and foster local ownership. An interdisciplinary approach ensures solutions are practical, accepted, and long-lasting. Finally, demonstration and pilot projects could play an essential role. Talking about the economics aspects. Studies consistently reported that the capex of agri-photovoltaic compared to ground-mounted photovoltaic is 20 to 40% higher. While OPEX remains similar, the levelized cost of electricity for agri-photovoltaic in Indonesia is estimated to be between 99 and 14 cents per kilowatt hours, compared to around 7.5 cents for utility-scale photovoltaic. The levelized cost of electricity is a region-specific value. Adaptive tracking, as shown previously, can help lower the costs while improving the crop yields. In off-grid or remote areas, replacing diesel offers a strong economic potential. An Indonesian-focused study showed negative net present values for agri-photovoltaic in off-grid areas. However, the values were still higher compared to diesel. Since the energy market penetration is said to be hard, the agriculture yield should be in the focus. Under the current regulations, Indonesia has a ceiling price mechanism for renewable energy tariffs, which constrains tariff flexibility. To enable wider adoption, clear business models, the inclusion of non-monetary benefits in project evaluations, and financial support are essential. Finally, a project-level feasibility study can be more specific. For further development of agri-photovoltaic in Indonesia, following recommendations are proposed, grouped by stakeholder. For all of them, government, private sector, and academia, the recommendations include developing of national agri-photovoltaic pilot projects, which also implies the enhancement of interdisciplinary approaches, bringing together those key stakeholders. Specifically for government, improving the permitting and grid procedure, including the PPAs, and establishing a dedicated policy roadmap, including agri-photovoltaic, are suggested. A further challenge, but required for an energy transition, will be to adjust and improve financial incentives, such as feed-in tariffs, subsidies, and consensual loans, so that renewable energies will be competitive against the subsidized fossil fuels. For the private sector and institutions, further recommendations proposing the raising of community awareness. And for academia, the focus lies on more and specific regional data collection and also geospatial assessment. And last but not least, also raising the awareness for agri-photovoltaic on an educational level. The remaining time for a renewable energy skills development project is 3.5 years. And currently, the focus of the project is on solar energy, solar diesel hybrid systems, microhydro, and battery systems. So, given its interdisciplinary nature, this study concludes that agri-photovoltaic is not suited for a direct integration into the RASD curriculum. the engineering students would require substantial agriculture knowledge to fully engage with the topic, which would exceed the program scope. But considering the remarkable potential, it could be incorporated indirectly by raising awareness and provide exposure, and also emphasize the importance of interdisciplinarity in projects. This could take the form of guest lectures, case study, discussions, or field visits to pilot projects. Finally, this study could also serve as a reference for future projects focusing more on agriculture and agrivoltaic. Yeah, and now we are at the end of my presentation from the report, and I'm happy to hear your feedback or questions.
Thank you, Basil, for your presentation. Sekarang kita akan memasuki ke sesi diskusi yang akan dipandu oleh Ibu Dian. Kepada Ibu Dian, dipersilakan.
Baik, terima kasih Mbak Devi. Thank you very much, Basil, for your very interesting presentation. Maybe you can stop sharing for the time being and we can pull up any relevant slides that come into the discussion. Baik, Bapak Ibu semua, sekarang kita memasuki sesi diskusi. Barangkali ada poin-poin yang disampaikan oleh Saudara Basil yang mungkin ingin diklarifikasi, diperjelas, atau mungkin ingin penjelasan lebih lanjut, atau barangkali ada feedback atau tanggapan secara umum terhadap paparan yang disampaikan oleh Basil tadi. Silahkan Bapak Ibu raise hand dan nanti bisa buka kamera dan open mic masing-masing. Silakan. Apabila belum ada, mungkin saya akan memulai dengan sedikit pertanyaan pemantik ya. So Basil, I will start maybe with one question for you first. So in the presentation, you mentioned that there are advantages of the tracking system. I found that quite interesting. The tracking system compared to the fixed systems. So maybe you can explain a little bit more what you mean by tracking. What does it mean exactly? And how does it compare to the fixed systems? Because in Indonesia, most of the Agri-PV that we know of, I think, are still using the fixed systems. And is that technology available, say, in Asia or in Indonesia?
Yes, I will quickly share again my screen. It's possible. So, yeah, the question about tracking or not tracking. Yeah, that's quite interesting. So tracking is also available for normal ground-mounted system. And there it is used for maximize the electricity yields. That means the panels, they are dynamic. They are moved depending how they're programmed, but normally they're moved to the sun course. And in agrivoltaic, the tracking could be used for maximizing the crop yields. So, for example, if there are seasons with heavy rain, the panels are more protecting as a protecting structure. And during other season, the panels are more programmed for maximizing the yield. So in agrivoltaic, it's combined. It's not only focusing on maximizing the yield. And in general, one can, there are two different kinds of tracking systems available. There's single axis and dual axis, but both of them are normally more, they have a higher capex, higher in investment costs. And in studies reported, but that the electricity yield, the additional electricity yield, they can be from 50 15% to 25% higher. But that's only for projects which are focusing on maximizing the electricity yield.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Bapak Ibu, apabila ingin bertanya untuk raise hand, itu silakan pilih tombol react, ya klik di layar di bawah layar Zoom Anda tuh seharusnya ada react. Nah, di situ nanti akan ada tombol atau pilihan raise hand. Nah, tinggal raise hand saja diklik, itu seharusnya nanti ini apa namanya akan muncul secara otomatis. Tadi ada pertanyaan dari Pak Petrus. Tapi kalau misalnya dari Bapak masih kesulitan, Pak, silakan apabila ingin ditulis di kolom chat box ya untuk pertanyaannya. Baik, kita ada pertanyaan dari Pak Diala Huta Balian. Silakan Bapak, kalau mau pakai bahasa Indonesia monggo, kalau bahasa Inggris juga monggo. Silakan.
Thank you, Bu Dian. Good afternoon, Mr. Basil. My name is Diala Hutabalian. I'm working at industry in Indonesia, especially in mining. My company is PT Antam Tbk. It is one of member of mining industry holding in Indonesia. And I'm also involved in the association's productivity of Indonesia. And first, I would like to appreciate your research regarding agrophotovoltaic as one of strategic to secure the energy in Indonesia. I would like to emphasize your recommendations regarding private to amplify this research for community awareness. And I saw from the virtual background, there is a logo from Minister of Manpower and also BNSP. So it is related with my questions. This year, Minister of Manpower, Professor Yasserli, at his speech in the Human Capital Summit held by Minister of Energy and also Mineral Resources, I wrote some of his speech regarding to increase the capacity of manpower in Indonesia in green productivity. So today's his challenges is to improve the green productivity adopted by Asian productivity organizations. While in that standards, it is one of your findings in the research is relevant with what our government face today to prepare and also to improve the capacity of Indonesian people about green productivity. And I saw it is aligned with what Minister of Manpower faced today. And if I may suggest, your research could be presented also to the National Productivity Organization. It is the organizations that integrated to the Asian Productivity Organization, which Indonesian is a member of that organization. So what your findings can be elaborated with them as a model that they can internalize to people in Indonesia through their technical centers. So I think your research or your findings is really beneficial for them to improve Indonesian people. So that's my comment regarding your research. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate what you have done in your research. Thank you.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Dialah, panggilannya Pak Dialah ya Pak?
Ya Bu, dialah Bu.
Pak Dialah.
Terima kasih Bu
Baik.
Dian.
Ya, thank you. Silakan, go ahead Basil, if you'd like to respond.
Yeah, I can just add, thank you, Padiala, for your inputs and your comments, and we will follow up with that. Yeah, thank you very much.
Ya, mungkin sedikit tambahan dari saya, Pak Dialah. So, the RSD project is closely working with the Direktorat Jenderal Bina Lavotas, Pembinaan Pelatihan Vokasi dan Produktivitas. And I think that's very closely related to the National Productivity Organization that you mentioned. So they would also have a strong interest in that. And yeah, thank you for your input. And we would be, of course, we will be sharing our result with the Ministry of Manpower, because the Ministry of Manpower is also part of the RSD steering committee, part of the project. Thank you. Silakan, ada pertanyaan dari Pak Petrus. Pak Petrus, silakan bila berkenan untuk buka cam dan buka mic-nya.
Halo.
Halo Pak, silakan.
Ya. Saya perkenalkan diri dulu ya Bu. Saya ini Petrus, saya Direktur PT Daya Santosa Rekayasa. Kami ini memang baru punya divisi baru untuk yang namanya digital farming, yang dimana kita punya yang sedang mencoba ya Bu, itu untuk fotovoltaik bifasial semi transparan. Seperti itu. Jadi di sini saya sangat tertarik sekali dengan yang presentasinya Mr. Basil. Ini kedua kali saya ikut presentasinya beliau. Gitu. Saya mau ada 3 pertanyaan. Gitu. Nomor 1, apakah beliau sudah mempelajari efek fotovoltaik ini untuk terhadap penurunan produktivitas tanaman? Itu. Karena memang kan namanya agri dulu kemudian fotovoltaik begitu. Kebetulan saya dari orang pertanian Bu, jadi saya itu yang saya concernkan terlebih dahulu, Mr. Basil. Nomor 2 adalah kenapa tadi di kopi itu efeknya paling besar ya? Itu karena apa ya? Kan gitu maksudnya. Kenapa kok kopi yang paling besar? Seperti itu. Yang ketiga adalah setahu kami, apakah sudah pernah dibikin trial untuk beberapa tanaman-tanaman yang perlu naungan? Kalau saya lihat tadi kopi kan efeknya besar, apakah karena kopi itu memang perlu naungan? Kalau di Indonesia perlu naungan kalau kopi itu. Coklat juga perlu naungan, vanila tadi saya juga lihat ada, terus lada itu juga perlu naungan. Apakah dilakukan juga untuk tanaman-tanaman ini? Karena memang tidak akan seluas yang namanya tanaman pangan, begitu. Tetapi kalau untuk nutupi renewable energy, menggantikan energi di Indonesia, saya rasa untuk kopi, coklat, vanila, lada itu cukup. Seperti itu, dengan Agrivoltaics saja. Kalau menurut kami begitu, karena sudah mencapai sampai dengan ratusan ribu hektar. Begitu Bu, kalau dari kami pertanyaannya. Terima kasih.
Baik, luar biasa. Terima kasih banyak Pak Petrus atas tanggapannya dan juga 3 pertanyaannya. Saya akan mencoba merangkum ya Pak ya, karena Pak Basil ini sudah sempat belajar bahasa Indonesia how long did you study Indonesian for, Basil, before coming to Indonesia? Or before when you arrived?
Yeah, I took like a 1 week intense course.
Okay,
So
1 bulan ya sudah.
I couldn't follow the whole question.
Oh, great. Okay.
I could not.
Okay, that you couldn't. Okay, but you understood a little bit. So I will try to summarize for you. Pak Petrus is from PT Daya Santosa Rekayasa. It's a company which one of the focus right now is the development of or the deployment of bispatial semi-transparent photovoltaic systems. That's a background context. And he has a background in agriculture, and he has 3 questions for you. One is, in your research, did you study the effects of the photovoltaic system or or solar PV towards the decline in crop productivity? So that's the first question. The second question is, You mentioned that coffee is one of the most potential crops in Indonesia for the Agri-PV. Now, what is the reason for that? That's the second question. And the third question is, has there been any trials that you know of in Indonesia for the crops that need shading? Because you mentioned there were a few crops. Also, Martin mentioned in the beginning that there are crops needing shading that would benefit the most from the Agri-PV system, such as coffee, peppers, tomatoes, and so on. Pak Petrus thinks that with the amount of those crops production in Indonesia, the energy need could very well be, I guess, fulfilled through Agri-PV. So I hope you caught all that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Pak Petrus, for the good questions. They're really good. I will start from with the first one. So you ask for what's the effect from the system, from the photovoltaic system you have, and what's then the effect of the plant, of the crop. So yes, that's one big point in agri-photovoltaic, and I did research about that. You can see the table which I'm sharing right now. It's just a small table, a small snapshot from the results from the report. So this is exactly the point. There's not much data available on that, but and because my research was focused on Indonesia, and in Indonesia there was not much data available. I had to look in different countries. So I tried to pick countries or areas with a similar climate conditions, but that was not ever possible. Yeah, but some studies with agri-photovoltaic, they did trials with cassava, chili, coffee, and they reported decrease or increase in the yield. And some studies, especially in Indonesia, there are a lot of studies existing about agriculture, but not about agri-photovoltaic. They have a lot of studies about agriculture, for example, agriculture with different genotype cultivars, or with coffee under coconut, with shade of the coconut trees. So there is something available. And also this literature I tried to implement. Yeah, that was question one, I think. Then the second question was, why coffee? So especially all the crops I choose, that was based on the literature, basically on the knowledge I gained during the process. So I got the impression that this 16, in total, these are 29 crops, but I grouped them so that these crops are the best suited for Indonesia according to the literature. So that means for all the data I found for coffee, it showed good results. I never saw data that said with a little shade they had a big decrease in the yield.
So sorry, Basil, just to clarify. So coffee being the most potential, is it based on the nature of the crop, like the physiological aspects, or because of prior research, it showed the most potential, the most yield, for example?
Okay. Okay, I will explain this graph again.
Yeah.
So the potential depends not on that. That doesn't mean the coffee is better suited than ginger. This graph only shows that the coffee area is way, way bigger than ginger. And so finally, that means that the coffee potential is higher than ginger.
Okay, I got it. So, mungkin sedikit klarifikasi Pak Petrus. Jadi jumlah kopi secara arealnya itu paling banyak sehingga itu yang dari 29 jenis tanaman yang potensial untuk Agri-PV karena ketinggiannya maksimal 5 meter begitu ya. Jadi secara fisiologis dan secara climate mungkin yang paling pas, yang paling berpotensi itu kopi gitu, yang paling banyak bisa menghasilkan mungkin energi dan pemanfaatannya begitu. Saya juga tadi sedikit saya pikir juga mungkin sama dengan Pak Petrus, kayak kenapa kok kopi yang paling pas dibandingkan crop lain
betul.
begitu ya. Ya, tapi maksud dari table ini sedikit berbeda.
Oke. Baik, Bu.
Ya, terima kasih. Okay, thanks Basil for the clarification. And for the last question, have there been any trials that you know of for crops or vegetation that needs shading?
So in general, I think I mentioned it before. In Indonesia, there's a lot of agriculture research for shade, for different genotype cultivars for crops. There's a lot of that available, but for specific research for agri-photovoltaic, there's little research available. But for example, I will share my screen again. Second. But I found in my research that in Indonesia are five existing, or in the near future, existing pilot projects. And for example, one of them is the project in Bogor at IPB. And they already do research with different crops. They try beans, soybeans, ginger, and they already reported, and that's also included in my report, they already reported that beans, soybeans, for example, they are really good suited for agri-photovoltaic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Semoga menjawab Pak Petrus.
Oke, Bu. Terima kasih.
Sama-sama. Silakan Bapak Ibu, apabila ada pertanyaan lainnya, silakan untuk raise hand. Oh ya, ini there's a question in the chat box from Ibeka dari Bapak Dikda. Terima kasih pertanyaannya, Bapak. Could you explain, Basil, why exclude paddy or rice fields from Agri-PV potential? Yeah, because as you know, Indonesia is also producing a lot of rice.
Yeah. So why I excluded rice? Yeah, that's a good question. So I wasn't sure long time if I should exclude it or not from the potential. But then I found research from other countries, from Japan, for example, and they showed a 20% decrease in agrivoltaic systems. And that was that gave me like the final step to say I will exclude it. But maybe in near future it could also be possible with different genotype cultivars.
Yeah.
Yes, and also I excluded it because the area of rice is around 10 million hectares. And it's really uncertain if it's possible. And if I would include it, it would really, the results would look way different. That's only of rice.
Yeah. So remind me again, for the coffee, for example, what's the total land area? More than 10 million.
No, less.
Oh, less. Okay. So if you calculated paddy, then it would distort the
it would
the
really
data.
distort the total
While in
data.
other countries, there have been reports that say that it decreases. Ya. Semoga menjawab Pak Dikda. Pertanyaannya bagus, tadi memang relevan buat Indonesia ya sebagai penghasil beras. Baik, silakan apabila ada pertanyaan lain, Bapak Ibu. Ini di sini ada beberapa dari Politeknik Mitra Aresdi. Saya lihat ada dari Bali, ada dari Ujung Pandang. Silakan Bapak atau Ibu yang hadir apabila ada pertanyaan.
Saya Mbak Dian.
Halo Pak Agung, apa kabar Bapak?
Baik. Ini saya kebetulan di luar nih.
Ya, monggo Bapak, monggo Pak Agung.
Ya, pertanyaan saya sebenarnya melanjutkan pertanyaannya Mbak Dian ya, about the tracking system. Siapa Mr. siapa?
Basil.
Basil. I just want to know about what we call it, about the tracking system in the Agrivoltaics, because if we add the tracking system, so the cost will be higher, and that's how about the comparison between the additional of the tracking system and the yield of the electricity for the system. That one. Thank you.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Agung. Pertanyaannya bagus, menarik. You got that, Basil?
Yes, yeah, good question. Thank you for the question, Pak. So the additional cost from tracking, is it worth it to take it or not? So studies shows different results, but a lot of studies showed that when there are focusing on agriculture and they are using the tracking system, it could be beneficial. But there's also not a lot data yet available, so it's really unsure. And also it must be said that it really depends on the local context, and every project is different.
Yeah. So it's unclear yet whether the tracking system presents a clear win in terms of potential yield and yield from the crop as well as electricity generation. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's clear that there will be an additional benefit for that, but it's not clear if how much are the costs additional.
Yeah. Okay.
If it's worth, how will the return of investment change?
Yeah.
Because that is really project dependent.
Yeah.
But in general, what makes agri-photovoltaics so expensive compared to ground mounted is more the mounting structure, the system, the high structures, and the more specialized hardware.
Gimana Pak Agung? Apakah menjawab kira-kira?
In my opinion, because of Indonesia, let's say in Indonesia, we are in the equator, so we have a lot of sunlight. So I think we can, if compared to the peak system and the tracking system, maybe I think it's maybe the results, maybe the peak system will be more beneficial because of I think it's the yield, potential yield. This will be just the difference between them is maybe not quite enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no data for me. Yeah, no report about it.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be a good research for that.
Ya, boleh tuh Pak Agung di riset.
Yeah.
Potensi apa namanya topik riset selanjutnya. Yeah. Jadi so for the time being it's still inconclusive and it's very project dependent, right? And I think also the availability of the what do you call it, the technology for the tracking structure. I don't know how available it is for for Indonesia, for example. Baik, barangkali ada pertanyaan lagi, mungkin bisa kita buka untuk 1-2 lagi sebelum kita tutup. Untuk Bapak Ibu yang tertarik untuk download paparan dari Basil, itu sudah dimasukkan oleh Basil di link ya di chat box, silahkan. Saat ini laporan fullnya, versi penuhnya dengan berbagai rincian detailnya itu sedang difinalisasi. Jadi apabila dari Bapak Ibu ada yang tertarik untuk membaca full reportnya, itu bisa menghubungi saya atau tim ARISD atau mungkin Basil secara langsung. Di paparannya itu di halaman terakhir ada kontaknya. Begitu. Baik, masih ada pertanyaan lain? Kalau belum ada, mungkin saya ada pertanyaan penutup ya. Basil, I have one more question. Maybe to wrap up, you mentioned that Agri-PV is quite potential. I mean, there have been studies, although there hasn't been too many. I mean, there hasn't been that many yet in Indonesia. And there are some challenges that we need to overcome for the uptake of the technology. What do you think would be the logical order in terms of what needs to be tackled first, or it's not like that? Or do you need to tackle everything at once and come and address it on parallel levels? Pak Edi in his opening speech said that to achieve renewable energy, there is not one single entity or one single player that is responsible. It's not achievable unless we all work together. What is your perspective in terms of Agri-PV for Indonesia?
Yeah, exactly. I think also that's a good question. I think also I agree with Pa Edi, and especially maybe agrivoltaic even more. It's combining the different sectors. So the interdisciplinary is getting very important. So there may be different steps which could follow for further development of agri-photovoltaic in Indonesia. And one next step is for sure the community and the awareness and the distribution and information of the knowledge. That's a starting point. And further to establish a good framework for all. But all this process and also the research, that's more in parallel. That's not step by step. If you start in 5 years with the research, when maybe in 5 years the framework is different, and you start then with the research, it's maybe you're kind of late. So their processes are more parallel, as Baedi also said.
Thank you. And thanks again for the very interesting presentation and the discussion. Dan terima kasih sekali lagi juga kepada Bapak Ibu semua yang sudah hadir dan juga turut partisipasi dalam diskusi. Sekian dari saya dalam memandu sesi diskusi. Saya kembalikan kepada Mbak Devi.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Dian. Bapak Ibu sekalian, sebelum kita mengakhiri acara, mari kita lakukan sesi foto bersama secara virtual. Mohon untuk Bapak Ibu untuk mengaktifkan kameranya. Oke, akan saya mulai dari halaman pertama. Dalam hitungan 1, 2, 3. Ya, dilanjut di halaman kedua. 1, 2, 3.
Harus terus senyum ya, karena nggak tahu kita di halaman
Iya.
berapa.
Baik, Bapak Ibu, terima kasih. Dengan demikian, seluruh rangkaian acara pada sore hari ini telah selesai. Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Edi dan seluruh tim ARISD, serta tamu undangan, serta para mitra perusahaan atas dukungannya. Semoga hasil penelitian ini dapat memberikan manfaat ke depannya. Sampai jumpa di lain kesempatan. Terima kasih dan selamat sore.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua. Terima kasih
Bapak
Pak
Ibu.
Edi, Mbak Enda.
Terima kasih Bu Dian.
Selamat sore. Terima kasih
Terima kasih,
banyak.
Terima kasih
Bu
banyak.
Enda.
Selamat sore.
Selamat sore, Bu.
Good luck, Basil. See you. Terima kasih.